Welcome to another episode of It Had to Be Said podcast, where we say out loud what you think in private. No topic is off limits. And in today's podcast, we want to talk about having conversations with highly illogical or highly emotional individuals. Having any kind of disagreement or discussion with them could be traumatic, and it could be very stressful for somebody who is extremely logical. Um, the reason I say that is because, as a logical person, you can present all the facts and all the evidence to a person. If they are highly emotional or illogical, the facts and the evidence doesn't matter to them. They're only concerned about their feelings, or they believe that they're right based off of the limited understandings that they may have, right? Now, you always hear me talk about, being careful about the people you deal with, friends, family, loved ones. And of course, we can't control our family, but we can control where we place them in our inner circle. But you also have to, and this is me, I think that one of the biggest parts of self-development and growing up and becoming a better person is also analyzing yourself, to sit there and say, okay, am I that person? Am I that person who argue just to argue? Am I that person who, once I believe I'm right, I'm not willing to, open up my mind or my thought process to possibly being wrong? And it's not necessarily being wrong. It's more of learning something, or learning the correct way or a better way of doing things. And if you find that you're that person and you do, fight with everyone or argue or disagree with everyone, just to prove that you're smart or you know what you're talking about, and you feel like, every stance you take is the right stance, that should be a clear indication that, you think you're right. You think you're right with everything. And remember the old saying that goes, somebody who doesn't believe that they have anything else to learn thinks that, they know everything. And the person that thinks that they know everything and they don't have to learn anything new is typically the dumbest or the most stupidest person in the room. None of us are born knowing everything. We become wiser through the experiences that we go through in life. And the most important thing the caveat to that is, not only must we go through the things in life, but we also have to learn from those things as well. And some of us, we're just not willing to learn from the mistakes that we make. So we end up becoming stagnated in our self-development or in our growth process. So you have to ask yourself, am I that person? And if you are that person and you don't like being that person, then you need to start fixing things, because if you look at your life, if you're, okay, and one of the, and I'm not saying this is a set in stone for everyone, right? Because everybody's situation may be a little bit different, you know. And just to get off topic for 1 second, it's just kind of like, I remember when I first wrote my book, Better Thinking Habits, the introduction edition, and I had a mentoring or advising package that I had put out for my clients. I made it to where, when people paid that $100 for that 1 hour of service every month that they got, they were able to call me and explain to me their specific situation that was going on and talk to me and ask me for advice. Because if I tried to just sit there and give you these wonderful, beautiful quotes and just say, oh, the sea will calm after the storm, or some beautiful little crap like that. I mean, how does that apply to your specific situation? I have to know all the variables, and of course that limited how many clients I can get, because I had a phone number that everybody can call, and they had an hour of time, meaning somebody may call and discuss a problem with me for 5 minutes. They may discuss a problem with me for 10 minutes, and then they have time left over throughout the month. But, I'm just saying, like, everybody's situation is a little bit different. Also, by the way, you guys like the way I put that plug in there, right? Now that I have the podcast, I think I might end up bringing back that service. If I do end up bringing it back, it's going to be on my website, adleytelfort.com or betterthinkinghabits.com. I'm going to let you guys know, because I still own those domain names. But going back to what we were saying, if you are that individual and you want to grow and you want to develop, one of the ways that you can kind of confirm to see if, well, I won't say confirm, But one of the effects, if you are that individual who's very combative and, very limited in their personal development or growth, some of the ways that it could affect you is kind of like, imagine or think about this. If you have somebody around you and you chose to be friends with this person, and this person is extremely smart, or even in a relationship, or you have a family member and the person's extremely smart when it comes down to finances. Whenever they speak about finances, if you always try to outdo them or outshine them and try to explain things like you're the expert in the room or you know more than they do, what's the likelihood of eventually that person's going to stop talking finance with you? What's the likelihood that person's going to just like not even try to advise you when they see you making a mistake? And it's not because they're intimidated by you. It's just because who likes talking to anyone or explaining things to someone over and over and over, and the person never listens and the person keeps making the same mistake? It's kind of like when you have that friend who always, gets into horrible, bad, relationships, or does something that's all like makes the consecutive same type of mistakes, not the exact same mistakes, but the same type of mistakes. And you always advise them, you always talk to them, and they always go back and do the complete opposite. Eventually, you get tired of dealing with them and you don't want to talk to them no more. And you don't want to talk to them about that particular subject. They may still be a good friend, but you don't want to talk to them about that particular subject. You want to wash your hands when it comes down to that particular subject that they always seem to just not take your advice on, make the same mistakes, and then come back bitching and complaining, right? So it's the exact same way. You got to think about this. You may have a family member, a friend, or a loved one, and they were awesome, and you fell in love with that person, or you love that friend, or you love that family member because they were a great person when it came down to certain things. And throughout that friendship, throughout that relationship, or that family atmosphere, that person changed. And you sit there and say, well, you know, with this person over here, you're still nice. With that person, you're still nice. How come you're mean with me? And we've all experienced something like that where we can watch somebody, we can sit down and watch somebody and say, well, how come you're so nice to everybody else? And then when it comes to me, you're mean when it comes down to this particular subject or topic. And sometimes we don't even want to think about it. And sometimes we don't let it click in our head that maybe because our attitude towards that topic, maybe everybody else is a little bit more receptive to this person who is an expert or knows more than they do, and everybody else is receptive to their knowledge and to the information they bring to the table. And maybe because time after time I've shown them that I don't care and I think I know better than them, I know more than them, that they got tired of dealing with me. So when it comes down to that specific subject, they just wash their hands. So sometimes we have to ask ourselves, why is it that a person who was at one point super great to us, super nice to us, and super like responsive, to our needs, why is it that that person changed? And then before we start blaming them, you always look at yourself and say, did I do anything to contribute to that change? Did I do anything negative to contribute to that change? And if you have to really ask yourself that, and I think that is one of the biggest forms of growth, when you can really check yourself rather than having everybody else out there have to check you, when you can really check yourself and say, oh crap, I messed up. Oh crap, I created this situation. You can't look at the results and then blame the other person for the results. You have to look at what you did to contribute to create a certain situation and say, okay, any result that happens after me effing up or screwing up is a result of my own actions. I can't blame anybody else, because how would you react? You would react the same way. Like, I've had people around me that if, if you accuse them of something just one time, they would tear up, they would cry, they would get angry, they would get upset, and they can turn around and they can accuse you every single day. And let's say they accuse you every single day for 2-3 years. And then one time out of that 2-3 years, you get upset. They look at you like, oh my God, you're so evil. I can't even talk to you because look at this. I can't even say anything to you. Look how you're getting upset and getting mad, you know? So sometimes people will expect you to be the biggest person in the room. And when you see somebody doing that, it's not, oh, they're a narcissist, they're a manipulator. Sometimes they're just fucking stupid. Sometimes they just don't know better. Sometimes their limited level of understanding causes them to react the way they are. They're not narcissists. They're not manipulators. They're not a horrible bad person. They're just limited in their understanding and they're limited in their intelligence. So now the question becomes, okay, should you be mad at them for how they reacted? Or should you be mad at yourself for being friends with somebody who you have come to realize, is of limited understandings or limited intelligence? Anytime I get involved in a relationship, or I hang out with somebody, or I have a friend, or I get close to a family member, and they show me that they have limited understanding, or they are very combative and argumentative about things they know very little about, or things that I know I'm more knowledgeable than them about, because there's always going to be somebody who's going to be more knowledgeable than me, and when I talk to that person, I have to be willing to sit down, shut the F up, and listen to what they have to say. And so, you cannot get mad at other people for their actions. A dog is going to be a dog. Don't get mad when the dog bites you. You guys have heard me talk about the story of the frog and the scorpion, when the scorpion asked the frog to let him get on his back and to swim across the river. And then halfway through the swim, the scorpion stings the frog. Frog looks at the scorpion and say, hey, we're both going to die. And the scorpion said, I just can't help it. I'm a scorpion. I sting people. That's what I do. Don't get mad at a dog when you reach your hands in front of a dog and it bites you. When you deal with certain types of people and you know that this person is that type of person, don't get mad when they do what they do or what they're expected to do, what their personality and what their actions have already told you. This is what they do. All right. They don't learn, they don't listen. And at the end of the day, they will find a way to blame you, or they're going to expect you to bail them out. And then they're going to make the same mistake all over again. It's kind of like the old saying, there's no honor amongst thieves. Right. So if you're dealing with somebody who is a criminal, who's a thief, who's a killer, who's a murderer, do not be surprised when they turn on you. And this is why I find it hilarious when I see some of these videos online where you have a bunch of thugs or criminals get together and then somebody invites somebody over to their house and then they jump the person, they beat the person up, or, they pull out the camera and they have their friends record them, beating the crap out of their so-called buddy or best friend, over $10 or $20. All right. They're criminals. They're hoodlums. They're pieces of crap. They're menace to societies. And you're friends with them, so you expect them to be pieces of crap, murderers, killers, and stealers with everybody else and then treat you right? No, dude. They'll do that to their own mother, to their own brother, to their own family members, so why wouldn't they do it to you? My name is Adley Telford. I post new podcasts every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.